Welcome to the ShadowBear Story Sessions, the podcast about brutally, insanely dark, and hilariously so folktales and fairy tales. And we're going through the original versions of Grimm's fairy tales, not the family-friendly versions, the super dark, gritty, original versions from deep in the middle of Germania or wherever the Brothers Grimm got these folktales and oral histories and put them all together in a big book. And you know what? Those oral histories were nuts, and I love every single one, so let's get into it with today's tale titled The Young Giant. We begin. A farmer had a son no bigger than the size of a thumb. Well, I guess he's going to grow. And the son didn't become any bigger or even grow so much as a hair's breadth, pardon me, in the coming years. He's got a lot of room to grow then, apparently. One day, when the farmer was preparing to go out to the field to do some plowing, the little fellow said, "Father, I want to go with you." Nah, that is way too dangerous. This kid is the size of a thumb. But apparently he's quite well spoken. If he's not growing for years, but I don't know if he was born this way and just stayed that way. It says for years he didn't grow any bigger. More than a hair's breadth. It's nothing, basically. It's not even measurable, especially if you're just the size of a thumb. I guess proportionally speaking, a hair's breadth is much bigger in relation to the size of a thumb than it would be a normal baby. So he's just getting there. He's getting there nice and slow. He's taking his time. Give him some time. But still impressive that he can talk. Probably super adorable. Listen to those little thumb-sized child talk. This little toddler. He was very well spoken. "Father, I want to go with you." But yeah, you can't be going out into the field. It's way too dangerous. Thumb child. Can't be going around industrial farming equipment as a thumb. Just gonna get buried in the soil and not be able to get yourself out. "No," said the father, "you'd better stay here. You're of no use to me out there, and you could get lost." Yeah, could totally get lost. If he hops on the tractor and gets taken across the field and then falls off the tractor, it's going to take him days to get home from the other side of the field. He's a thumb-sized child. It's going to take him forever to cross even just 10 feet. Thumbling began to weep. That is an adorable name. I'm going to name my son Thumbling. Thumbling began to weep, and if his father was going to have his peace and quiet, he had to take the boy with him. Not really. He'd just go into the next room. It's so tiny. It can't be very loud, right? Or just start running. He can't catch you. You can easily get peace and quiet when you're just trying to escape a toddler the size of a thumb. So his father stuck him in his pocket. Again, adorable. And once he was out in the field, he pulled him out and set him down in a freshly plowed furrow. Don't be doing that. He's just in danger. Just some mouse could come along and take him away. As the boy was sitting there, a big giant came over the hill. Even worse than a mouse. "Do you see the big bogeyman over there?" said the father, who just wanted to scare the little fellow so he would behave. "What are you talking about? Why do you need to scare him? He's probably pretty scared already. Also, we have no indication that he's misbehaving. He's just sitting down on a furrow, a freshly plowed furrow. I don't even know what that is. I'm assuming just a little mound of freshly plowed soil or something. Yeah, don't scare this kid. He's the size of a thumb. He's probably terrified of everything. If you're the size of a thumb, boiling water on the stove would just be a nightmare. Literally everything would be terrifying. But anyway, saying, "Do you see that big bogeyman over there? He's coming to get you." No, he's making it seem like the thumb is the target of this giant. What a terrible father. He's he wants him to calm down and stop crying first, and just be cool not going outside. And now he's trying to scare. I guess he's just trying to like make it like he's never going to want to go outside again. I'm going to make it so this kid never wants to go anywhere, which is super cruel. But I guess that makes sense. I don't know. If is the dad not scared of the giants? I'd be pretty nervous about this whole situation. Now, we continue. Now the giant had long legs. Of course he did. He's a giant. And after only a few steps, he reached the furrow, picked up Thumbling, and carried him away. Why? Also, like, you were right, Dad. I guess he was coming to pick me up. He's just saying it to freak him out, but he was pretty surprised when that actually happened. The father stood there so petrified with fright that he couldn't utter a sound. So why are you making fun of your son for being afraid of stuff, huh? Or are you trying to scare your son into behaving? When you're so terrified yourself, it's a little taste of your own medicine, Dad. He deserves it. We continue. He was certain his child was now lost to him, and he would never set eyes on him again for the rest of his life. He just kept him in his pocket, right? Or give him like a little, give him like a little seat on your hat. Just make a little like tiny little chair, like those those wire things that keep champagne corks on. Just take one of those, make it into a little hat, and then attach it to the brim of your farmer's hat, and then boom, strap him in with some little piece of string or something, so he's like on there nice and tight, and then give him a little hat. That'd be so cute, and then he'd be up there on your hat with his little hat, and you could take him anywhere you need to go, and he wouldn't be targeted by giants. Why are there giants? Wouldn't that be a threat to the farm? Shouldn't he have measures in place for dealing with giants, or at least be friendly and on good terms with the giants? And also, why does this giant want a little thumb-sized child? This is of no interest to him. He's just walking along. How would he even see that kid? It's the size of a thumb. Maybe giants have great eyesight? Who knows? Then again, if he did see him, that would be fascinating. So he'd be like, hey, it's the opposite of me. Look at you, little guy. I'm taking you away. Sorry, Dad. Man. I mean, I don't really feel bad. This could be a much better situation. His dad sounded like his dad sucked. All right, meanwhile. All right, so we're leaving Dad behind now. Meanwhile, the giant took the boy and let him suckle at his breast. What? How does that make any sense? They're very clearly identifying this giant as a man. So what's going on there, guys? All right, let him suckle at his breast, and the thumbling grew and became big and strong like most giants. Okay, all right, I guess this is happening now. When 2 years had passed, the old giant took him into the woods to test him. We're just, all right, that happened real fast. So I guess just like this thumb-sized boy sucked on a man giant's nipple and got big through unexplained means. It feels like, all right, like giant breast milk is superpowered and makes you a giant. I would believe that. That is not what is happening here, guys. This is just a giant. This is just a man giant. Maybe, I don't know. Giants are a different species. Maybe in the giant world, men can also breastfeed, which is pretty cool. And we're just going to have to operate under that assumption, I guess, for this to make sense. All right, so in the reality of this particular folktale, giants are a species in which both men and women, or maybe only men, can breastfeed. Pretty cool. All right, Grimm's Fairy Tales. I'm rolling with that. We continue. When 2 years had passed, the giant took him into the woods to test him. Pull out that willow tree, he said. By now, the boy had become so strong that he tore up a young tree right out of the ground, roots and all. But the giant thought he must do better than that. I mean, what are you talking about? You asked him to do it, and he did it. Great, it sounds like. So he took him home again and suckled him for 2 more years. What, did he just, like, not tear it up good enough? He didn't tear it up to shreds fast enough? I don't know. I don't know the judgments by which giants evaluate tree destroying. All right, 2 more years of suckling for our little big thumbling. When he tested him once more, the boy tore out a much larger tree. The tree wasn't big enough. Yet, it still wasn't enough for the giant, who suckled him another 2 years. At this point, after 40 years of just, like, suckling on your dad's boob, this kid's gonna be like, all right, old dad who was just, like, trying to freak me out all the time sounds pretty good, because this is boring. I'm just spending all day sucking on this giant's boob. Man, that's a rough life, 4 years of that. Yet, it still wasn't enough for the giant to suck him another 2 years, and when he took him into the woods, he said, now, rip out a decent-sized tree. Oh, he's challenging him. All at once, the boy tore up the thickest possible oak tree right out of the ground so that it cracked in two, and this was mere child's play for him. When the giant saw what he had done, he said, that's enough now. You've learned all you need to know. What do you mean learned? You teach him. You didn't teach him anything. Jesus. And he took him back to the field where he had found him? What? It's just this giant is just an agent of chaos. Man, really, really messes stuff up. Or maybe giants also have super hearing, so they heard what was going on. They're like, man, that dad has been really mean to that little tiny kid. Let's go make him big and then send him back so he can teach his dad a lesson. I'm into that. I love that. Giants looking out for the little guy. The irony there. Love it. This is really a story of, like, someone of means raising up the little guy, literally and figuratively. All right, we continue. His father was plowing there as the young giant came over to him and said, look, father, look at what's become of me. I'm your son. Man, that'd freak you out. The farmer was frightened, understandable, and said, no, you're not my son. Go away from me. All right, but I mean, like, your son was crazy small. That also kind of then makes it more believable that one could be crazy big, right? If super, super small people exist, then crazy, crazy big people also exist, and both can be your son. And you also, like, saw a giant take your son, so maybe read into that a little bit. You know giants exist, and you know one of them took your son. So, yeah, think it through, farmer. Think it through. This farmer's dumb. None of his decisions have really made sense, and he hasn't really handled anything very well. All right, of course I'm your son. Thumbling said, let me do your work. I can plow just as well as you can, or even better. No, you're not my son. You can't plow. I don't want you. Go away from me. Man, buddy, come on. That sounds like I just, like, made that up. That sounds like that was me riffing. Nah, that's what he said. He replied, no, you're not my son. You can't plow. I don't want you. Go away from me. This guy's a dick. This is a mean, mean man. Although his son did get kidnapped right in front of his eyes by a giant. That's probably going to traumatize you pretty bad. So, I don't know. There's a lot going on for this guy right now. However, since the farmer was afraid of the big man, he let go of the plow, stepped aside, and sat down at the edge of the field. Then the young man grabbed the plow and merely pressed his hand on it, but his grip was so powerful that the plow sank deep into the earth. The farmer couldn't bear to watch all that. Why not? That's pretty cool, right? I don't want to watch that. And so he called over to him. If you're so set on plowing, then you've got to learn not to press down so hard. Otherwise, you'll ruin the field. Okay. Maybe don't chastise the giant who just offered to help you. Check your tone, buddy. Check your tone. Then the young man unharnessed the horses and began pulling the plow himself. "Just go home, father," he said, "and have mother cook me a large dish of food. In the meantime, I'll plow the field for you." He's not gonna, want to say hi to mom first? That's one of the first things that I would want to do, right? Unless she was even meaner than the dad. We haven't even addressed her at this point. We haven't even seen her in a scene thus far. So maybe he's not looking forward to that. He's like, go make her some food. Have her make me some food. But all right, he's confident. The farmer went home and told his wife to cook the food, and the young man plowed the field, 2 whole acres, all by himself. After that, he harnessed himself to the harrow and harrowed the field with 2 harrows at the same time. I don't know what a harrow is, guys, so I'm just going to keep going. When he was finished, he went into the woods and pulled up 2 oak trees. Hey, he knows how to do that. We know he's good at tree pulling. He put them on his shoulders and attached a harrow, I don't know what that is, at each end of a tree and a horse at each end of the other tree. Then he carried everything to his parents' house as if it were a bundle of straw. When he reached the barnyard, his mother didn't recognize him and asked, "Who's that horrible big man?" "That's our son," the farmer said. All right, so I guess the farmer's come around and accepted this. I don't know whether that was because he recognized oh, you do look similar, just way bigger. It's like a blown up version of the little guy we used to have running around. But if you were going to tell your wife to make some food for the guy that's plowing the field, wouldn't you mention if A, it was your son that was lost 6 years earlier, kidnapped by a giant? And wouldn't you also mention B, that he's a giant now? Be like, "Hey, honey, there's a giant who just offered to plow the fields. And he says he's our son, the one who got kidnapped and was tiny. Well, he's big now. He's a giant." This is all information that you would immediately share. But apparently this farmer just rolled up and was like, "Make some food." On no explanation. No explanation beyond that. Man, would have been useful. Would have really helped things out, farmer. Again, this farmer, biggest idiot of the story thus far. "No," she said, "that can't be our son. We never had one that large." "Our son was a tiny thing." Then she yelled at him, "Go away. We don't want you." "Why would you say that? Why are you sending him away?" "Go away. We don't want you. He's clearly very helpful. Even if he's not your son, just make him an employee, right? Come on, lady, that's mean." Now we know why Thumbling didn't want to go say hi to mom straight away. He's rude too. Yeesh. The young man didn't respond. Yeah, understandable. Don't take none of that. Doesn't even merit a response. But led the horses into the stable and gave them oats and hay and put things in order. He's great. It's good. He's awesome. Don't know how he knew how to do that. Doesn't sound like that was part of giant school, and he was way too little to do that before. But, maybe he was in his dad's pocket one day when he saw that years and years and years ago. After he had finished, he went into the kitchen, sat down on a bench, and said, "Mother, I'd like to eat now. Is supper almost ready?" "Yes," she replied, and didn't dare to contradict him. All right, so both times the parent has been like, "You're not our son. We don't want you. Get out of here." And he's just carried on as normal, and they've just rolled with it. I guess just because he's big and they're scared of him, they're just gonna be like, "Okay, I guess he's our son if he says he is, because we're scared, we're terrified of him." She brought him 2 tremendous bowls of food that would have lasted her and her husband a week. However, the young man finished everything by himself and then asked whether she could give him something more. "No," she said, "that's all we have. That was really just a nibble. I've got to have more." So she went out. Here's the problem now. So she went out and put a large pig's trough full of food on the fire. When it was ready, she carried it in. At last, a little more, he said, and gobbled up everything that was in it. But that was still not enough. Yeah, all right, this definitely isn't worth it then, right? If this is what it's going to cost to have this superhuman employee son working for you. Father, he said, I can't tell I can tell I'll never get enough to eat here. So, if you'll get me an iron staff strong enough that I can't break it across my knees, I'll go away again. What? I mean, you probably can't get that. All right, let's see how they handle this. I'm very curious now on whether this is just an arbitrary thing or whether this kid's got a plan. The farmer was happy to hear that. He hitched 2 horses to his wagon and went to the blacksmith, who gave him a staff so big and thick that the 2 horses could barely pull it. The young man laid it across his knees, and crack, he broke it in 2, as if it were a beanstalk, and threw it away. His father hitched 4 horses to his wagon and fetched another staff, one so large and thick that the 4 horses could barely pull it in. Once again, his son snapped it across his knee and threw it away. All right, this is getting pretty expensive with all this blacksmith work here. Father, he said, this one's no use to me. You've got to harness some more horses and fetch a stronger staff. I'll be like, you come. Just come to the blacksmith with me and test them there. That's way more practical than this system. Then his father hitched up 8 horses to his wagon and brought back a staff so large and thick the 8 horses could barely pull it. When his son took it in his hand, he immediately broke off a piece of the top and said, Father, I see that you can't get the kind of staff I need, so I won't stay here any longer. What? That wasn't the deal. The deal was you left when you got the staff. I thought you would only leave if you got the staff, not if you couldn't get the staff. That doesn't make any sense. Man, maybe he's just like, I don't respect you because you cannot obtain a staff good enough for me, even though he's clearly just can do this to all staffs. That's not the problem. You're just too strong, buddy, which is kind of the whole root of why you can't stay there to begin with, because you can't be fed. You're going to need to handle, obviously, these people, your parents, can do nothing for you anymore. Do not entrust them any tasks. Maybe he just wanted to humiliate him. Maybe he's like, you know what? You made me feel powerless and like I couldn't do anything right when I was little, so I'm going to give you a task that I know you can't succeed at, just so that I can then demonstrate how crazy powerful I am in front of you, and also make you feel powerless and small and like you can't actually do anything. And then I'm just going to leave in disgust at how stupid you are. Power move. That's all it was. He knew he was going to snap all these staves. Just a total power move from this kid. All right. The young man went away, and he began passing himself off as a journeyman blacksmith. How does he know how to do that? Also, if he's a blacksmith, why didn't he make the staff? Come on, buddy. What's going on here? Was blacksmithing part of giant school? As far as we know, giant school just consisted of drinking man milk and ripping trees out of the ground. I don't know blacksmithing had anything to do with it. Or maybe he's just picking the skill up along the way because he's now endeavoring to create a staff so strong that he himself cannot break it. And that is motivating him learning how to blacksmith, which would be pretty cool. I like that. They should have clarified that. Soon he came to a village that had a blacksmith among its inhabitants. Wouldn't most of them? He was a miserly man who never gave anyone a thing and kept everything for himself. All right, not the best blacksmith then, probably. The young man went to the smithy and asked him whether he could use a journeyman. Yes, said the blacksmith, who looked him over and thought, that's a sturdy fellow. He'll certainly be good at hammering, and he's sure to earn his keep. Then he asked, how much do you want for your wages? None at all, he answered, but every 2 weeks, when the other journeymen receive their wages, I shall give you 2 blows that you must be able to withstand. Whoa. That's intense. He's like, that's some psycho stuff right there. He's like, don't pay me. Every 2 weeks, I get to punch you as hard as I can twice. That's insane. That's disturbing. I would immediately be like, nah, get the hell out of here. I don't know who you are or what this is. Get out of here. Because that's scary. That's the craziest I ever heard. Wow. Okay. The miser voiced great satisfaction with the terms because he thought he could save money this way. Bruh, you see this? Do you see this kid? You see this guy right here? He cracked multiple he cracked a staff in half that 8 horses could barely carry. I mean, I know you didn't see him do that, but look at him. He's a literal giant. And he's going to punch you in the face as hard as he can twice. You are going to die, dude. Wow. All right. Blinded by his own greed, I suppose. The next morning, the strange journeyman was supposed to hammer first, and when the master brought out the red-hot bar and the journeyman dealt the blow, the iron flew all over in pieces, and the anvil sank so deep into the ground that they couldn't get it out again. So he's also a bad blacksmith, I guess? Man, all right. This is really an example of, like, know how to use your strength. Can't force through everything. The miser became furious and said, "That's all? I can't use you anymore. You hammer much too roughly. What do I owe you for the one blow?" Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Why would you say, "What do I owe you for the one blow"? You don't owe him anything. He made things worse for you. And did just like one thing. You don't got to pay him. Why would you say that, dude? You are digging your own grave. Man. All right. "I'll give you just a tiny tap, that's all," said the journeyman, and he lifted his foot and gave the miser such a kick that he flew over 4 stacks of hay. Tiny tap. Don't do it with your foot then. Tiny tap is like a finger or like, just like not like a kick. Jesus, gave the miser such a kick. Even if it's a small kick, a kick has a lot of force behind it, more than just like a, wave of the hand. Man. For one blow of a hammer that ultimately made their work impossible because the anvil sank into the ground. Jesus, this miser is an idiot through and through. Then the journeyman picked out the thickest iron staff he could find in the smithy, used it as a walking stick, and went on his way. So he stole that. That's theft. He just stole that. He just knocked the blacksmith out and stole a staff. You robbed this guy. I think this qualifies as like a robbery. He beat up the owner and stole something. Just like a really roundabout robbery. And also, like, he knew he wasn't going to be a good blacksmith. If he knows anything, it says he hired himself out as a journeyman blacksmith. So he must know something about blacksmithing, right? Up until this point, it said that he was traveling as a blacksmith. Just he began passing himself off as a journeyman blacksmith. So maybe he never actually did any blacksmithing. He just like said, "I'm a journeyman blacksmith." So he's a con man. So this was all a ruse just to steal a staff, which he just could have done all along. In pretty much the same fashion, just more directly and without a weird making a deal and trying to get hired. Like, just go in and take it, man. If this is what you're going to do the whole time, you're not even a blacksmith. You clearly don't know what you're doing. You hammered an anvil into the ground. Man. Yeah, save everyone the trouble. Just steal it if you're going to steal it. And also, like, you didn't need to beat him up. You could have just taken it. No one's going to stop you. You're an insanely strong giant. There's a lot going on here. And now he's kind of a dick. Like, Starting to become the case where I like none of the characters. It's one of those stories. Okay. All right. So he stole the thickest iron staff he could find and went on his way. After he had been traveling for a while, he came to a large farming estate and asked the bailiff if he needed a foreman. Stop offering to work for anyone, buddy. Just like you're on your own now. You know? And I feel like you're probably going to be fine. I feel like you're pretty capable of doing whatever you want to do. You're probably just going to start taking cows and ox or sheep or whatever for food because nothing else can satiate your incredible hunger, because you're not just going to get like a normal job, buddy. That's that path, that life is not for you. It's kind of sad, but I mean, the giant has kind of like cursed him, really, with this strength and this stature. Thought he was helping him and making him strong, or maybe not. Maybe this is trying to teach him the value of being small. Should have stopped after the first one. If he was going to live among the giants, like if this giant's plan in taking this small thumb-sized child and making him all big and strong was to have him live among the giants, great. Clearly they have some way of like managing daily life and getting along. But by sending him back into human-sized world, he essentially cursed him to constantly never have a place and be an outcast and be too strong and completely unable to be fed and satiated. That is horribly cruel. That's even more cruel than the first dad, who was already pretty cruel. Man, everyone's the worst in this story. I guess the son is just trying to find his way, but it's definitely not going about it in a great way. He didn't have to beat that guy up. Also, like, he didn't do, and it said he was a miser and took everything for himself. We didn't see any of that. It was the son, it was the giant who was like, "Don't pay me, I'll just punch you twice," which is again, that's so insane to say. That is psycho nonsense. All right, well, now he's big farming estate, asking if he needed a foreman. Why you think you're a foreman? He's a con man at this point. He doesn't know anything about farming. He came from a farm, but like large farming estate, you don't start off as foreman. He's not a blacksmith either. He's a con man at this point. What's he going to take from this farm? All right, let's find out. Yes, said the bailiff, he could use one. He remarked that he looked like a sturdy and able fellow and asked him what he would like for a year's wages. You're not going to like it, buddy. Again, the journeyman answered that he didn't want to be paid, but that the bailiff would have to withstand 3 blows that he would give him at the end of every year. The bailiff was satisfied with that, for he too was a miser. Why is it just like everyone's a miser? Also, how's he going to eat then? You can't. Punching people alone is not payment. Like, it's not like, doesn't get you anything. The whole reason you left the farm with your parents was because they could not feed you, bro. So this does not solve that problem. If you want to punch people, no one's going to stop you from punching people. You're huge. You're so much stronger than everyone. If like that's what your goal is, then fine, just do that and like be upfront about it. But maybe he's trying to maybe he really wants to punch people, but like he feels guilty if he just does it. So he like is now offering his services as a way of like, okay, this will ease my conscience when I punch you as hard as I can. But why is that the goal for him? It speaks to his like, this is like some Napoleon complex stuff. Like, I used to be little and I couldn't do anything strong or hurt anyone. I was so powerless, but now I'm the strongest person in the world and I'm going to punch as many people as I can, as hard as I can. But I feel kind of bad about doing that, so I'm also going to do some work for them beforehand. But he didn't with the blacksmith. He ruined his blacksmith shop by destroying equipment and hammering the anvil into the ground so they couldn't even get it back out again. Ask him to retrieve it. Couldn't they have asked him to pull it back out since he's so strong? I don't know. I don't think this is going to go well for this bailiff, though. Don't agree to that. Even if a giant human, not even a literal giant, if The Rock came and was like, I'm going to work for you for a year for free, and then I'm going to punch you as hard as I can 3 times. I'm going to be like, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm sure you would do a lot of good work, but I also want to live longer than a year, and I'm probably not going to if you're just going to have free reign to punch me in the face 3 times super hard. That can kill someone if they're the size of The Rock. So, pass. I'm just going to carry on living my life. But man, all right, so bailiff is also accepting this horrible, horrible arrangement. The next morning, let's see if he gets longer than 1 second into working for this guy. The next morning, the hired workers got up early because they were supposed to drive to the forest and cut wood. Hey, that's something that we know he does, not cut wood, but rip trees from the ground. He can be good at this. But the young man was still in bed. One of the workers called to him, "Hey, it's time to get up. We're going to the forest, and you've got to come with us." Isn't he the foreman? Didn't he get hired as the foreman? It says a foreman, but foreman is a position of authority, right? So he's already terrible at his job. Man. Not yet, he replied in a rude and surly voice. It's his first day on the job and he's being rude. Come on, buddy. We continue. You all go. I'll get there and back before the rest of you anyway. He's a giant. It's not like he can run faster than horses and stuff, right? I don't know. Then the workers went to the bailiff and told him that the foreman was still in bed and wouldn't drive to the forest with them. Dude, even if you're you think you're better than them, you're the manager, basically. You kind of just have to be there to organize stuff. This dude is not cool. This guy is a dick. I don't like him now, and I'm losing respect for him with every decision he makes and every single thing he does. And the fact that he wants to punch people after working for them, except then not work for them or do the job well. So he's just messing with people for no reason and then being violent. This is horrible. What is an awful way to live your life. All right. So they told the bailiff. The bailiff told them to wake him again and order him to hitch up the horses. Yeah, you're the foreman. Do your job. But the foreman answered just as he had before. You all go. I'll get there and back before the rest of you anyway. All right. Yeah, but we're a team. Right? Wasn't that what you would say? I'd be like, all right, you're a team though. We're a team and you're the leader of the team. So I understand maybe you're really fast, but you also just have to be with the team. You're a manager. So organize things. Jesus, buddy. So he remained in bed another 2 hours. How far away is the forest? Jesus. And when he finally managed to get up, he fetched 2 bushels of peas from the loft. Cooked himself a porridge. Who eats peas for breakfast? Now we know this guy is a psychopath. And took his own sweet time in eating it. After that was done, he went out and hitched up the horses and drove to the forest. So he didn't even run or anything. He just used horses, which is what they were doing. How was he going to arrive any faster? Oh, now I feel stupid. He's obviously just going to get there, grab some trees. It's not that he would get there faster. It's that once he was there, he'd be able to. All right, I feel stupid. He's still a dick, though. All right, so after that was done, went out, drove to the forest. Near the forest was a ravine through which he had to drive. When he drove through it, he stopped the horses, got out, walked behind the wagon, and took some trees and bushels to build a large barricade that would prevent horses from getting through the ravine. When he arrived at the forest, the others were just leaving with their loaded wagons and heading home. He's the worst. So it wasn't just that he was really efficient. Now, oh my God, this guy. You're the foreman. You're coworkers. This isn't like a competition. And if it was, you'd still be an ass. You'd still be mean here. You'd still be in the wrong. Oh my God. Drive on, he said to them. I'll still get home before you. You're on the same side. He's really bad. I hate this guy. But he only drove a short way into the forest, where he immediately ripped out two of the biggest trees from the ground, threw them into his wagon, and turned back. When he reached the barricade, the others were still standing around, since they had been prevented from getting through. Yeah, by you. You see, he said, if you had stayed with me, you'd have made it home just as quickly, and you'd have had another hour's sleep. Well, if you had told them your plan, maybe they would have. Why would they trust you? You just showed up and you were mean to them. You were rude about it. What a prick. Like, screw this guy. I hate this guy. He wanted to drive on, but his horses couldn't work their way through the barricade. So he unharnessed them, set them on top of the wagon, took hold of the shafts, and whisked everything through as easily as if the wagon were loaded with feathers. Once he was on the other side, he said to the workers, "You see, I got through faster than you." This guy is the worst. Yo, man. Again, you're on the same side. You're coworkers. You're supposed to be their boss. And you're like actively preventing them from doing their job and mocking them to their face. So you're actually hindering the efficiency of the work that you're supposed to be doing and you're supposed to be managing them doing, and you're killing morale by like taunting these guys and like rubbing their faces in the fact that you're crazy strong and doing all this stuff. And you're just mean. This is awful. All right. And he drove on while the others had to stay where they were. He didn't. Oh my God, you guys. Oh my God. He didn't even take the barricade down so that they could get through. He didn't even take the barricade down. He left them there. So he's going to get back to the bailiff, and the bailiff's going to be like, "Where's the other guys?" He's like, "Oh, I made a barricade to prevent them from getting back." Well, why did you do that, foreman? You're a bad foreman. Why did I hide? This is insane. All right. And he drove on. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. The others had to stay there. At the barnyard, he grabbed hold of one of the trees, lifted it by his hand, showed it to the bailiff, and said, "How do you like this nice cord of wood?" The bailiff said to his wife, "He's a good man, our foreman. Even if he does sleep long, he still makes it home sooner than the others." This is, if this guy were your coworker in any context, like no matter what type of job you have, if you work with a person like this, you hate this guy. And no, he's not. Oh my God, this is infuriating. So the young man served the bailiff for a year. The other guys would have told. They would have told him what happened. They would have eventually gotten back, right? Unless they all died on the other side of the ravine. Jesus. When they have they would have told the bailiff what's going on, and the bailiff would have been like, "Wait, you actually like prevented them from doing their job? Also, you could have just, gone with them early, because the workday starts when the workday starts, and then gotten more done. Like, you would have improved the efficiency of our operation here, which is what I hired you to do, because there's a reason I made you the giant strong guy, the foreman, straight away. It was because, presumably you could improve our operation. And instead of doing that, you actively worked against my operation and just made yourself seem indispensable. You're manipulating me, basically, is how the bailiff should feel about this. Wow. All right. But for whatever reason, he got away with this nonsense for a year. And when it was over and the other workers received their wages, it was time for him to collect his pay as well. However, the bailiff was afraid of the blows he had coming to him. Yeah, I'll bet. He begged the foreman to forgo everything and said that in return he would make him bailiff and take over the job as foreman himself. Whoa. This guy does not want to get punched. I understand. I get it. He'd be like, please just give me my life. I'll do your job and you can be the boss now. Man, no, said the young man. I don't want to be bailiff. I'm the foreman and I want to stay foreman, and I intend to dole out what we agreed upon. This dude is crazy. This dude is a psycho. This is terrifying behavior. This is, oh, that is chilling. He just, this is like a CEO being like, I'll give you the CEO position, just don't punch me. And the employee is like, no, I'm gonna punch you. I'm gonna continue being my lower paying job. And because that means I just get to punch you in the face. Wow. Then again, maybe there's some people out there who work in jobs in which they would take that deal as well, who don't like their bosses. The bailiff, but they seem to have a good relationship. If anything, in this story, the bailiff and this young man seem to have the only like good relationship, but that's purely because the young giant manipulated him into thinking that he's not a terrible person and actively working against him and his other employees. The bailiff ordered to give him whatever he wanted, but it did no good. The foreman rejected everything he proposed, and the bailiff didn't know what to do except to ask him for a 2-week period of grace. He needed time to think of a way out of his situation. The foreman granted him an extension, and now the bailiff summoned all his clerks together. Why would he grant him an extension? Obviously, he's just going to like do something. That makes no sense. And again, no one is stopping you from doing anything that you want to do, buddy. Just be like, no, doing this right now. This is, wow. Also, we'll just say he needed time to think of a way out of the situation. What was the excuse he gave? Because it couldn't have been that. I mean, he would have been like, I need to get my affairs in order. I need to write a will. That's the only thing that would have been like that convinced him to maybe give him a break here. Wow. All right, so foreman granted him extension. Bailiff summoned all his clerks together. He asked them to think of a way to help him and to advise him. After they had deliberated a long time, they finally said that the foreman had to be killed. I mean, it does seem like it's either the foreman or the bailiff, because, yeah, it seems like if this guy punches you, you're dead. So I don't even know if I'm mad at that. I get it, right? They made an agreement, sure, but this is psychotic behavior. He should never have allowed it to happen. He should have seen this coming, and yeah, okay, no, it's awful for the bailiff to do this, because he made the agreement, and to now, only now be like, nah, we should kill him instead. It's like, no, you got the benefits of a year of his labor. Then again, we don't really know if it was that good, because on one hand, yeah, he clearly, I guess, did a lot of good work himself, but was actively preventing the other people from doing work so that he would look good by comparison while also being lazy. So I don't know ultimately how this worked out in terms of like a net gain for this company, this farm estate. All right, let's see See how they do here. The bailiff was to have large millstones brought to the courtyard. Then he was to order the foreman to climb down into the well and clean it out. When the foreman was down below, they would roll the millstones to the well and heave them on his head. The bailiff liked, oof, that's a brutal way to go. The bailiff liked the idea, and everything was prepared. The millstones were brought to the courtyard. Once the foreman was standing below, they rolled the millstones to the well and threw them down. All at once there was a big splash high into the air. They were convinced they had broken his skull. However, he called up to them, "Chase the chickens away from the well. They're scratching around in the sand and throwing grains into my eyes so that I can't see." Ooh, chilling. Not only did you not kill him, but he was so unbothered, he thought it was grains. So the bailiff yelled, "Shoo! Shoo!" as if he were scaring the chickens away. When the foreman had finished his work, he climbed up and said, "Just look at what a fine necklace I've got now." But he meant the millstone that he was wearing around his neck. Weird. So did it not land on his head? It just fell perfectly about his neck, like around his head? You just, didn't quite get it? Man. All right. Now, the foreman wanted to receive his pay, but the bailiff requested another 2 weeks' grace to think up a new plan. Dude, it's not how payment works. If it was normal wages, you wouldn't be like, "Sure, pay me in a month," even though we already waited a year for this payment. Man. But whatever. This clearly the giant is just toying with them, right? Clearly that's what's happening here. The clerks met again and advised him to send the foreman to the haunted mill to grind grain at night, since nobody had ever emerged alive from it the next morning. I love how I love that this just took a turn into the supernatural. That is like, the haunted mill. Send him there. No one returns alive from the haunted mill to grind grain at night. At night? Who would ever? I love this. The bailiff liked the proposal and called the foreman to him that very same evening. He ordered him to carry 8 bushels of grain to the mill and grind it that night because they needed it right away. So the foreman went to the loft and put 2 bushels in his right pocket and 2 in his left. He carried the other 4 in a sack that he slung over his shoulder, so that half was on his back and half on his chest. Is this essential that we know, the arrangement in which he carried it? Seems secondary. He's a giant. He carried it fine, we assume. And off he went to the haunted mill. The miller told him he could easily grind the grain during the day, but not at night, because the mill was haunted, and anyone who had gone there at night had not returned alive the next morning. So there's a guy who works there all day. There's a guy that's his mill, the miller. This is his mill, and he's like, "Yeah, it's all fine during the day, but at night everyone dies." It's like, all right, but this is your place? You own this? Is this your spot, buddy? You just want some answers on what's going on at night? All right. "Don't worry, I'll manage," said the foreman. Now they just call him the foreman instead of the young man, or I don't know why you wouldn't call him the giant. It's weird. "Why don't you go and get some sleep?" Then he went into the mill and poured the grain into the hopper. Toward 11 o'clock, he went into the miller's room and sat down on a bench. After he had been sitting there a while, the door suddenly opened, and an enormous table came in. The place is pretty haunted. Next, he saw wine, roast meat, and all sorts of good food appear on the table by themselves. But nobody carried these things in. Ooh, spooky. After that, the chairs slid to the table, but nobody came. All at once he saw fingers handling knives and forks and putting food on the plates. Otherwise, he didn't see a thing. Since he was hungry and saw all this food, he sat down at the table and enjoyed the meal. When he had eaten his fill, and the fingers had also emptied their plates, he distinctly heard all the lights being suddenly snuffed out, and when it was pitch dark, he felt something like a smack in his face. I guess the ghost just slapped him, I guess. Then he said, "If anything like that happens again, I'm going to strike back." It's ghosts, man. You can't strike back ghosts. You can't punch a ghost in the face. It goes through. It just goes through. They're a ghost, buddy. This is the one we may have found. I mean, I'm sure he'll figure out a way to defeat them. But really, a ghost should be like the one thing that he can't overpower because it's invisible and intangible. His physical strength is his only ability. This should be out of his reach here. When he received a second smack in the face, he struck back, and so it went the whole night. He took nothing without paying it back generously, with interest. F off, story, with interest. It's like tough talk. What does that even mean? With interest, and kept himself busy by smacking anything that came near him. At daybreak, however, everything stopped. When the miller got up, he went by to see how the foreman was, and he was amazed to find him alive. "I got some smacks in the face," the foreman said, "but I also gave some in return and ate a full meal." The miller was happy and said that the mill was now released from its curse, and he wanted to give the foreman a good deal of money as reward. "I don't want money," said the foreman. "I already have enough." No, you don't. You never accept payment. All you do is punch people in the face. What do you mean you have enough money? You don't have any money. What the hell just happened? So the haunting, this big, dangerous, haunted mill, was just ghosts smacking people in the face? That's not going to kill anybody. And also, you can't punch a ghost. What are you talking about, story? That makes no sense. So he just punched people. This dude was just... Oh my God, you guys. So this haunting is just a bunch of ghosts slapping people in the face and him punching back, delivering in return what he got with interest, which I still think is lame as hell. Oh my God. There's no way that works. Or ghost. You can't punch a ghost in the face, buddy. Come on. What are we talking about? Then he took the flour on his back, went home, and told the bailiff he had done his job and now wanted to be paid the wages they had agreed upon. When the bailiff heard that, he really became upset. He paced up and down the room, and beads of sweat ran down his forehead. So he opened the window to get some fresh air, but before he knew it, the foreman had given him such a kick that he went flying through the window, out into the sky. Why is he's kicking people? I feel like the payment was punching, right? The payment is like deliver a blow. I guess that could be. I just assume that's a punch, but a kick is way worse. A kick is way more forceful. My God. Then the foreman said to the bailiff's wife that she'd have to take the other blow. Dude! What is your problem? That's so not cool. She didn't make an agreement. You did not make this agreement with her. That is really not okay, buddy. That is like genuinely upsetting that this is happening. Buddy, this is not cool. His wife, that she'd have to take the other blow. Oh man. All right, this is genuinely disturbing. All right. This man is a psychopath. He is on a rampage and must be stopped. I don't know why this story is acting like he is the hero of this story. He has become a villain. No one is forcing him to do any of this stuff. He's just going around messing with people, screwing with people's jobs. torturing people. All right, we got to continue because this is nearly over, but this is horrible. No, no, she exclaimed. I won't be able to stand it. Oh, this is really sad, you guys. And she opened the other window because beads of sweat were running down her face also. Let her go, buddy. Then he gave her a kick too, and she went flying out the window. Since she was lighter than her husband, she soared much higher. That is so sad. Man, this guy is awful. Her husband called out to her, "Come over here." What? So is he like still flying through the air? But she replied, "No, you come over here to me. I can't make it over to you." So they floated in the air, and neither could get to the other. Whether they are still floating, I don't know, but I do know that the young giant took his iron staff and continued on his way. The end. What the hell, guys? That's horrifying. This is a horror story. This is a story about a giant, a monster taking a, like, I don't know what, I guess he had like a birth defect or something and was born tiny and had like kind of a disability, I guess, and then turning him into the opposite, like it's someone with so much insanely overpowered physical capability. But that change, I guess you don't even need to, because he wasn't disabled, he was just small. He was probably very good at lots of things. Being small gives you a lot of particular skills, right? Like he'd be able to do things that people who were large couldn't do. He'd be able to make, like, craft things with a level of detail that no one else would be capable of. So no, it's not a disability at all. It's kind of its own superpower. But he turned him from that into a super, super, super strong giant. And the shift, that change, like, psychologically broke him somehow. And just his newfound power made him a monster. I think that's the lesson here. That's like the moral. Give someone too much power, and they will abuse that power, because that's all he did for the rest of the story was torture people and mess with people and ruin people's livelihoods. Like, there's the blacksmith who they said was a miser. They said he was a bad, like, a greedy person, even though we didn't see anything to show that, and ruined his shop. He'd smashed the anvil into the ground so that none of them could get it back out again. So they can't work anymore until they fix that problem somehow. I get a new anvil, I guess. I don't know. And like, he shattered the thing he hit with the hammer one time, and it went everywhere. And it was iron. It was like molten hot metal that he sent flying everywhere. So who knows what the repercussions of that was. And then he went to the farm place, completely lied about everything, sandbagged the other employees to make them look terrible. So did a horrible job. And then there was the whole ordeal with the millstone and they shouldn't have tried to kill him. That wasn't good. But also, come on, buddy, why do you just want to, like, punch and kick people all the time? Why is that your goal here? Why do you accept no payment and just want to humiliate and torture people? What's wrong with you? And also, this poor couple now. The bailiff and his wife, they're floating in the air, they're flying in the air endlessly, can't get to each other. They're in love and they can't get to each other. It's horribly sad. It's very depressing and super upsetting. And honestly, I cannot forgive this our protagonist for kicking the wife. That's horrible. She shouldn't have to take the second blow just because he kicked the guy too hard the first time, how about you exercise like a tiny bit of self-control in one aspect of your life, buddy? Don't hit the hammer so hard at the blacksmith shop. Don't kick the guy so hard that he never comes down. Like, it's your fault then if he flies so far that you can't give him the second blow. That's your fault. Don't bring the wife into the mix and start kicking and punching people who had nothing to do with the arrangement that you made. This is just that. Now you're no. That's, oh man, this is upsetting. What a horrible person this is. Interesting though. I genuinely do think it's a very interesting lesson from the standpoint of like someone getting a crazy amount of power and then abusing it, because you see that happen all the time in the real world. Someone, yeah, gains a lot of capacity or power over other people around them, and they just take advantage of it. And it's interesting because he took advantage of it in the one way he could hurt people the most. Like, he could have like hired or gotten a much bigger wage or an outsized reward. But no, he wielded that physical strength of his power. He wielded his power in the way in which he knew he would hurt people the most, which was literally physically hurting them, which is scary. Like, genuinely very upsetting and scary. Man, we got pretty deep here with that lesson. And that's real. There's a lot to do with that, story-wise. This is going to be an interesting one. This is a crazy story. I was totally here for it. It was wild. Horrible person. Again, very much protagonist in this one, not the good guy. And usually these stories frame them as a good guy, but this one actually did seem somewhat, it just sort of laid out what happened. And it did kind of inherently frame him kind of as the hero or the good guy, but I think it did stay more neutral than most of the stories do. So it does sort of allow you to, I think, interpret it a little more your own way than a lot of the stories do in terms of whether or not the protagonist is a good guy or not. It sort of just says what happens. Actually, I don't know about that, because it framed the blacksmith as a miser and the bailiff as also being like greedy and stingy and miserly. So in so doing, it kind of frames them as the bad guys and sort of him as the good guy. Huh. Interesting. Or just a story in which they're all bad guys, but it doesn't. No, because these stories are pretty straight down the line, and at no point does it ever cast any judgment or anything on him, on his actions. It treats his actions as being acceptable. So yeah, no, I take that back. It doesn't. It is a bit more neutral than a lot of the stories, but it still frames him as being in the right, which is messed up. Yeah, the story is these folktales are very direct, and if they think something is bad, they say it. And in this one, it basically says he's right because they agreed. It frames it as the agreement. It frames it as like they made the agreement, and so he is just and right for wanting to uphold the agreement, even though the agreement is entirely unreasonable in all of the aspects. And also it frames him as like outsmarting like the other guys who are getting the wood from the forest and stuff, even though there's no way he's like the good guy in that situation. He got up late. It's like, if you have to show up at work, I guess no, that's a bad example. If you get the same amount of work done in less time, then you should still get paid the same amount as people who took longer to get that work done. But if you're actively working against those people who are also trying to get that work done, you shouldn't get paid the same amount, because you're hindering the overall, results of the team here. Man, this one's wild. All right, I'm gonna have some fun with this one, and meet me on the other side for the adaptation. I kind of I stumbled through that sentence. Meet me on the other side for the adaptation. All right, we've got an adaptation. This one is going to be a movie, and it's going to be a comedy. I've had a lot of really long, serious adaptations lately, so it's time to just get real silly with one. Guys, that's what we're going to do. So, yeah, I mean, the theme was pretty clear about getting too much power too fast, and then abusing it. And that would make an interesting adaptation, sure. But you know what? I want to get silly. So that's what we're going to do. All right, let's get silly. This one takes place modern day. And we start with a young man played by Timothy Chalamet. And he works for his grandfather on his grandfather's farm. And his grandfather is played by Harvey Keitel. Because I love Harvey Keitel. He's great in everything. He's just got a real intense kind of vibe to him. Fantastic. So Timothy is working on the farm, but he's all skinny and weak. And Harvey Keitel is like, I love you, grandson, but you are terrible working on a farm. It's not just that you're weak. You also have zero physical coordination. You're always dropping stuff, tripping on yourself. You're just very bad at this. I love you, Timothy. It's okay that you're bad at this. You're my grandson, but you suck at farming. And then one day, the farm mafia attacks Harvey Keitel's farm because in this universe, the farm mafia is a thing. And because Harvey has been refusing to pay protection to the farm mafia, and he doesn't want to work with them, they trash his farm and they burn his crops, and they also kidnap his weak little grandson, Timothy Chalamet. And so they're essentially keeping him hostage, right? This is like a low-level farm mafia family, since they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, This isn't outside of a city or something. This is real deep in just the plains of wherever, presumably the US, but just middle of nowhere, farm out on the long dirt road. This isn't a big mafia. This is farm mafia, people. And we have a very humble, low level farm mafia family. And yeah. And they kidnapped him, and they're also training him to be part of farm mafia. It's one of those things of to keep Harvey Keitel in line, basically. He's a hostage and he works for us, and he's going to be raised in our system. And so essentially you cannot go against us because now your grandson is one of us. So yeah, we're bringing him up. We're teaching him how to be a farm mafia. And Timothy tries to resist because he's on Harvey's side. He resents them for having taken the crop, burned the crops and beat up Grandpa Harvey. But they just beat him mercilessly, and he's weak and small and so uncoordinated. So he has no choice but to fall in line and to do what they say. And then one day, one of the farm mafia families gets attacked by one of the other farm mafia families. And so another family attacks the family that Timothy works for. And in the chaos, he manages to escape. He sees an opportunity, and he runs off, out into the fields, through the cornfields. He doesn't have a plan. He doesn't know where he's going to go. He just wants to get the hell out of there. And he can't help his father on his farm. He's not even good at farm mafia. For goodness sake, he just wants to get the hell out of there and make his own way, start a new life. And so he's running away through the cornfields, farther and farther away from this melee that's happening behind him. He can hear the gunshots in the fading behind him. And suddenly he trips and he falls. And he's used to that because, he's clumsy and uncoordinated, so he does fall down a lot. But this time it's different. He looks up and sees that he's standing in the middle of a clearing, or on the edge of a clearing in the middle of a cornfield. And he tripped because the corn stalks had been bent and flattened. It's that's odd. And he looks up and sees standing before him an alien, Boom. That's right. This is a mafia movie with aliens in it. And the alien is just looking at him like shocked, like as though the alien like just got busted doing something because he was making crop circles. And just suddenly this kid shows up. And Timothy's like, oh, please don't hurt me. I'd offer to help you or do something, but I'd probably suck at alien stuff too because I'd suck at everything. And then the alien looks at him quizzically for a moment. Then the alien steps toward him. But, of course, Timothy Chalamet, he cowers in fear because he's afraid of everything and incredibly weak and uncoordinated. But the alien calms him. He calms him down, and then he steps up to him and he puts a finger to Timothy's temple on the side of his head. And we see a montage of Timothy's life, and we understand that this alien has just read his mind. And then the alien, he looks sad for a moment, but then a twinkle flashes over his eye, and he looks knowingly at young Timothy. And Timothy's like, what do you want? Please, just leave me to die in peace and weakness. He's so weak, you guys. He's so weak. But the alien he just calmly lifts his finger and he presses it to Timothy's chest. And the alien takes a great big breath. And as he takes this breath, we see Timothy's chest and shoulders and arms and legs just grow as though the air is going through the alien as the alien inhales it, and it's being channeled through the alien's body and sent through the finger and turned into just like pure raw Chalamet muscle. And by the end of this long breath, the alien steps back and he gestures for Timothy to stand up. And he does, revealing that Timothy Chalamet is now totally freaking jacked. He's just strong as hell and also like 9 feet tall. Suddenly, his just arms and legs like tree trunks, his shoulders just like boulders, and a chest like a brick wall. And the alien just gives him a thumbs up and then flies away into space. He's out. And Timothy Chalamet is like, hey, thanks, space alien. That was really cool. And then we see Chalamet reach out, grab like a dozen stalks of corn in one hand and just effortlessly like rip them out of the ground, and then take his other hand and then just rip him in half. Just all at once. And he drops him and he looks at his hands, and we see a look come over his face. And he turns around suddenly and just charges back through the cornfield the same way he came, cutting through it just like a freight train. Going so fast, you guys. He's like a superhero now. Well, the fight that started his escape between the two farm mafia families is still raging. And suddenly the barn door, because this fight is obviously happening in a barn. You know, it's farm mafia. That's where stuff happens in farm mafia. The barn door is just ripped straight out of the wall and just flies out, and it reveals giant Timothy Chalamet standing there with the moon silhouetted by the moonlight behind him. And everyone is like, who's that? What? Is that Timothy Chalamet? What the hell, Timothy Chalamet? How'd you get all jacked? But he just leaps into the barn and just starts straight up stomping the mafia family who attacked the family who he was being held captive by. Like, just starts just totally wrecking these people. Just like punching their torsos like clean off their legs and stomping them into pancakes and stuff, just ripping their legs off and beating them with it. He destroys these people. Like, he has become just a monster of muscle, basically. So then the mafia family who kidnapped him and who was trying to train him to be a good soldier for them, they're like, I don't know what happened just now, but you are awesome now, Timothy Chalamet. And Timothy's like, I know, I got strong. Now I'm like good at stuff and will happily work for you. And they're like, great. This is super awesome. We can use super jacked Chalamet to take out the other farm mafia families in this area and become the #1 farm mafia family. And I'm just gonna say I really enjoyed saying that sentence. Moving on. And that's exactly what happens. So we got Chalamet just getting unleashed on all these other rivals and just smashing them into oblivion like some sort of unstoppable farm Hulk, and like farmer, like Incredible Hulk. So I guess it's just normal Incredible Hulk, except not green and with like a little piece of hay in his teeth and the farmer hat, like classic old school farmer hat. You could have like a, one of those what does it call it? A trident. I have not worked on a farm. The thing that they use to like get hay from one place to another. It's got like it's big and pokey. Maybe he's got one of those as like a prop, sort of to really complete the whole like farmer Incredible Hulk kind of vibe. Anyway, and so soon they're just as powerful as like the big time farm mafia families. And so they challenge one of these, like the nearest big family. And there's a big meeting between the two families, and it's agreed in advance. Like Chalamet has this conversation with like his boss, and it's agreed that when the boss gives him the signal, Chalamet's supposed to attack and just kill the other mafia boss, and then there'll be a power vacuum and they'll just take over. So his boss, he gives a speech in this meeting, and the boss gives the signal, but Timothy, he does nothing, and his boss looks at him like, "Go on then. That was the signal." And Timothy smiles, and then in one swift movement, he swings his arm and slaps his own boss's head clean off his body. Just flies against the wall and explodes, and everyone is stunned. But Chalamet just leaps at the men who he had been working alongside this whole time, who he thought he was on their side, and he just obliterates them. Yep, this was all part of the plan. It's payback for them kidnapping him and messing up Grandpapa Harvey Keitel's farm. This is all set up. And then the opposing boss watches him do this. When the dust settles, Timothy turns around and he says, "They kidnapped me and made me work for them. I always hated them. They were small time. I only helped them so I could get into the same room as you. You're the big leagues. You're the big time farm mafia guys, and I'm guessing that you can pay me far more for my services than they ever could, and so that I can finally send some money back to my grandfather, who can rebuild his farm and better than ever." And the big boss, this other family's big boss, says, "It would be my pleasure." And so then Chalamet helps this new, like, big time mafia or farm mafia boss. I need to make sure it's very clear that it's farm mafia every time, until it's just, he starts knocking off other families until it's just like the last two big farm mafia empires. And they set up a meeting face to face for a final showdown. But the night before the meeting, Chalamet, he's sleeping in his bed, which is on a train car, because farm mafia always travels on their own train. And Chalamet has his own train car to sleep in because he's like a giant and is also like super important by now. And Chalamet wakes up and he goes to check in with the boss, make sure everything's all right. But he then realizes that the train car is locked from the outside. He's been locked in. He goes to the other side and sees that this side is locked too. He's been trapped. And he looks through the windows and sees that not only that, but the train car has been detached from the rest of the train. It was snipped off the back. And he suddenly runs to the giant bed and throws aside his mattress, and there's a whole bunch of explosives. And then boom, the whole train car blows up. Now, we cut straight to the meeting between the top two mafia bosses. They're just having a meeting, one-on-one, in a super fancy train car, presumably the same train that Timothy Chalamet had been part of before. And Chalamet's boss, it's like, "That giant Timothy Chalamet, he would have destroyed you, but he doesn't know when to stop. He would have killed me right after you. This way I can blame his death on you to my men, so that my men won't think that I've killed one of their own, one of their brothers, and they'll remain loyal to me." And the other boss says, "I'm glad you reached out for a truce. As killing enemies is the best way to grow your power, but always having an enemy to blame is essential for keeping that power." And the two men, they laugh and they cheers for drinks, ha 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 ha, aren't we the best? And then the train lurches a bit, and it begins to slow. And the two men are like, that's weird. There must be a problem with the engine. What's going on? And so they radio through the intercom asking about it. And the engine car at the front of the train is like, yeah, it's weird. The engine should be fine, but wait, oh my God, it's him. He's on the tracks. He stopped the train with his bare hands. And then the two bosses hear just a tremendous crash outside, and they open the window and they look towards the front of the train, and they see that the frontmost train car suddenly fly off to one side and just smash a couple 100 feet away in a field, just land with like a clatter. And then the next car flies off too. And then the next car, and they know Chalamet survived, and he's throwing these train cars aside one by one, working his way back toward them. and before they know it, there he is at the door to their train car, still like all blackened with soot from the explosion that he survived, just glaring through the window of the train car with just crazy Chalamet eyes. And because he's so tall, because he's like 9 feet tall now, he can just stand on the ground and just still look through the train car window, just straight at him. And the other mafia boss, he's like, it wasn't me who attacked you. It was your own boss's idea. You've got no quarrel with me. But Chalamet just kicks the door so hard that it flies straight off the hinges and into the other mafia boss. And the door is going so fast when it hits him that it just carries him through off his feet and all the way through the train car and just smashes him like a bug against the opposite door on the other side of the train car. And Timothy's mafia boss jumps to the side to dodge this flying door, and then he crawls out, climbs out of the window, and just makes a run for it. And Chalamet is just watching him run, and he just smiles to himself. Then very slowly, very calmly, he picks up the entire train car and then sort of turns it on vertically and just holds it in a hand, and then just launches it straight into the air, and it flies straight up, higher and higher. And we cut to the inside of an airplane, and a kid is looking out the window, and he sees the train car emerge, bob up out of a cloud, perfectly upright and vertical, right alongside the plane. It bobs up, and then it falls back down and disappears into the cloud. And he goes, "Mom, look!" But by the time she looks, it's gone back through the clouds again. It's a little funny moment there. So cut back to the mafia boss running through a field, and we see him running towards the camera with Chalamet just far behind him. And then boom, the train car just falls directly on top of the mafia boss, and the train car is perfectly vertical and falling so fast that the train car just flattens on top of him like an accordion, just utterly crushing this mafia boss man into oblivion. And so now, with the farm mafia completely destroyed, Timothy Chalamet, he takes all of these, the riches and the money that is left. Somehow, okay, let's say somehow he also got intimidated, the boss or the accountant, the farm mafia accountant, to get this money too, and returns to Grandpa Harvey Keitel's farm, knowing that they can never bother him again. And he arrives home, and he rips the door off the hinges, because that's just how he rolls now. He's ripping doors off hinges. And he's like, "I'm back, Grandpapa Harvey Keitel, and I'm super crazy jacked now, so I can make our farm better than ever and work those fields better than any man or machine ever could. And if anyone tries to harm us again, I will destroy them with my insane strength and bloodlust." And Harvey Keitel is like, "Oh, that's great. Welcome, buddy." And then, I don't know, and then they had a party. The end. Just a nice fun dance party with Harvey Keitel and super jacked, 9 foot tall Timothy Chalamet. And we fade out on that. The end. What a heartwarming tale of family, of strength. This is it's like a superhero movie. It's a mafia movie. It's an alien movie. This has a lot going on. I'm here for it. Let's do this thing. Do it up. Like and subscribe. Tell someone about this. I don't know. I don't promote this thing. I suck at social media. I just like doing it. I like making stories. I love these folk tales. And yeah, come on back for the next one. See ya.